Welcome to Talk Treatises.
Thanks. It is really good to be here.
So today we are we're opening up a file that at first glance might actually look like it belongs in the nursery.
Right, yeah.
Because if you just judge a book by its cover, or, perhaps by its reputation as just a fairy tale, you might think we're taking a bit of a break from our usual heavy lifting.
Which we are definitely not doing.
No, exactly. Usually we are parsing through really dense political theory or ancient philosophical manuscripts or, the kind of heavy theological tomes that basically double as doorstops.
The ones that give you a backache just carrying them to the desk.
Exactly. But today we are tackling a classic work of theology that is, quite frankly, brilliantly disguised as a narrative.
And not just a narrative, but a fantasy. It's literally a story about a princess, some miners, and these very nasty creatures living underground.
Right. We are doing a deep dive into The Princess and the Goblin by George MacDonald. And before anyone out there tunes out thinking we're about to just discuss a bedtime story for 8-year-olds, I want to set the stage here.
Please do.
We are treating this text not as a children's book, but as a systematic treatise.
Which is, exactly how MacDonald intended it to be read, arguably. He famously said he didn't write for children, but for the childlike.
Right.
Whether they be 5, 50, or 75. I mean, C.S. Lewis, who is an absolute giant in this field, he actually referred to MacDonald as his master.
Which is high praise.
The highest. Right. So if you read this expecting just a simple, Disney-style adventure, you're going to completely miss the fact that he is dismantling 19th century materialism right in front of your face.
Exactly. So our mission today is to totally bypass the bumper sticker summary of this book.
The whole princess gets lost, boy saves her, goblins are bad summary.
Right, we're skipping that and treating it as a serious exploration of the nature of belief, the corruption of the human soul, and the actual mechanism of divine guidance.
It's a heavy lift, but it's worth it.
It really is. We have a lot of source material here, so let's just jump right into the context. This isn't just a kingdom we're dealing with. It's a full cosmology, isn't it?
It is. If you really look at the structure of the setting, it's a vertical hierarchy. It's almost medieval in its precision, honestly.
How so?
Well, you have the high ground, which is the mountain palace. This is where the King Papa visits, but more importantly, it represents the domain of what we'd call the sun people.
The sun people.
Right. It's the place of the enlightened soul. It's the place of air, light, and clarity. It's where you can actually see the sky and orient yourself.
And then, of course, you have the underground.
Precisely. The subterranean caverns. And these are inhabited by the goblins.
The bad guys.
Yes, but the text is very specific about their history, which we'll get to later. Spatially, though, they represent the fallen, the corrupted, or what MacDonald might classify as the subnatural. They live intentionally away from the sun. They live in the dark.
So for you listening, we have this vertical tension. The story isn't just about moving left to right on a map.
No, not at all.
It's about moving up and down the spiritual ladder. You are either ascending toward the sun or you are descending into the rock.
It's entirely vertical.
Right. And the core thesis, if we were to boil this whole treatise down to a single central argument, what would you say it is?
The thesis is fundamentally epistemological.
Okay, let's define that for the listener who might not be fresh on their philosophy 101.
Fair enough. So epistemology is basically the study of how we know what we know. It asks the underlying question, what validates truth?
Right. How do we prove something is real?
Exactly. Now, the modern world, and certainly the deeply scientific empirical world of the 19th century when this was written, operates on the idea that seeing is believing.
You show me the data, I'll believe the facts.
Exactly. But MacDonald's thesis in this text is the exact inverse of that.
Believing is the requisite for true sight.
Yes. You cannot see what you do not have the moral capacity to believe in.
I mean, that is a really heavy concept to hang a fairy tale on.
It is.
You're saying I have to believe in the thing before my physical eyes can even register it.
Exactly. He's arguing that faith isn't just a reaction to evidence you've been handed. It's actually a new organ of perception.
Like a muscle.
Like an eye. If you don't have the organ, you simply don't get the evidence. You're blind to it.
Okay, let's unpack this. I want to start where the theology in the text is most concentrated. We really have to talk about the attic.
Oh, yes.
This is part 1 of our deep dive. The theology of the attic, or the nature of the divine.
This is truly the heart of the book.
So the Princess Irene, our protagonist, she's 8 years old. She lives in this halfway house on the side of the mountain. And one day, she just gets lost. But she doesn't get lost in the woods.
No, she gets lost inside her own house.
Right. She goes up the stairs, which is heavily significant, the fact that she's going up. And she finds herself in a part of the house she's never even seen before. And she meets the grandmother.
The great-great-grandmother, specifically. And this figure is just fascinating. If you analyze the text's description of her, she is a walking paradox of age and youth.
Yeah, she tells Irene she is older than you are able to think.
Right, and at one point she hints at being over 2,000 years old.
2,000 years,
Yeah.
which is a very specific number, especially for a Victorian author.
It is highly specific. It places her origins roughly right at the start of the Common Era, so it's a clear nod to the Church, or the Ancient of Days, or perhaps even the Holy Spirit, sort of representing the feminine aspect of the divine.
But then here is the paradox. She possesses the physical beauty of a woman of 3 and 20.
Yes. The text mentions her skin is smooth. She's strong. She's upright. She isn't withered or frail at all.
But her hair.
Her hair is the marker. It is silver, not gray, which implies decay or fading, but silver. It shines. It flows down her back almost all the way to the floor.
And she lives at the very top of the house.
Yes, in the anatomy of the soul, she is the head. She represents the higher faculty.
And note the accessibility here, because Irene can't always find her.
That's a massive plot point. Irene tries to take her nurse, Ludi, up to see her later, and she literally can't find the room.
It's like the room doesn't even exist unless you're in the right state of mind.
Exactly. The dwelling place is entirely conditional. It's accessible only through a specific stair, and usually only when Irene is in need or lonely, or in a genuine state of openness.
That's just what?
It suggests that the divine isn't a static object. You can't just go visit it like a museum exhibit whenever you feel like looking at it. It's a relational reality that only appears when you are properly ready to engage with it.
Now look at what she does up there in that room.
Yeah.
She's not just napping on a throne. She is sustaining herself on a very specific and weird diet.
Pigeon eggs.
Pigeon eggs. That just seems so random at first glance.
It seems random until you look closely at the source material. The text describes these pigeons essentially as messengers. They bring news and, this is crucial, they bring spiderweb material from over the Great Sea.
Over the Great Sea? That immediately sounds like the other world, the transcendent realm. Heaven, basically.
Essentially, yes. The grandmother is directly connected to a reality that exists entirely beyond the mountain system. She consumes the fruit of these messengers.
It's almost a Eucharistic image, isn't it?
Very much so. She is sustained by food from another world, but more importantly, she uses that spiderweb material they bring back.
We'll get to the thread in a minute because that is huge, but I want to stay on the metaphysics of the room itself for a second. There are 3 key artifacts here that we need to hit: the lamp, the fire, and the skinning wheel. Let's start with the lamp.
The lamp is described as this spherical lamp that shines like a silver moon.
But it's not just a fancy light bulb.
No, its key attribute is its penetrative power. The grandmother explains to Irene that she can literally make the walls vanish to the sight. When the lamp shines, it doesn't just illuminate the room, it shines through the solid walls.
Which is such a terrifying and beautiful thought.
Yeah.
The idea that the walls we think are totally solid, the stone, the mortar, the physical world itself, are actually permeable if the light hitting them is strong enough.
It completely flips our understanding of reality. It implies that the physical barriers we think are the ultimate hard reality are actually quite flimsy. The light is the stronger, truer reality.
Because it reveals the starry herds even when the sky outside is totally cloudy.
Right. It cuts through the immediate atmospheric conditions, the weather of our lives, if you will, to show the eternal cosmos that's always sitting right behind it.
And functionally in the story, it acts as a guide. It guides the pigeons home. It's a literal beacon of safety in the dark.
Yes. And then there's the fire.
Now, usually when we talk theology, fire is judgment. It consumes, it burns away the wicked.
But not this fire. MacDonald specifically calls it the rose fire.
Right.
It consists of these glowing, burning roses. It burns, yes, but it does not consume. When Irene arrives the very first time, she's covered in mud from being out on the mountain. And what does the grandmother do?
She doesn't wash the dress with water.
No, she sweeps it with the fire.
And the mud just vanishes. It cleanses her.
It's a completely purifying presence. The roses are described as hot but deeply healing. Later, Irene actually puts her bare hand right into the fire, and it doesn't burn her flesh at all. It just heals her bruises.
So this is a theology of a God whose fire is actually love.
Yes, a love that is so intense and burning that it's enough to destroy impurity. The mud but which is simultaneously the very life source of the believer. It heals the actual flesh while utterly destroying the dirt.
That is a beautiful subversion of the typical fire and brimstone trope.
It is.
And finally, we have the spinning wheel, because the grandmother is constantly working.
She is spinning a thread from that very specific spiderweb material brought from over the sea.
Which implies a theology of active providence.
Exactly. She isn't a passive deity just sitting on a cloud somewhere watching the world turn. She is actively weaving. She is constantly preparing a link. She explicitly tells Irene she is spinning it for her.
Which perfectly leads us directly into part 2 of our deep dive. Epistemology, or the problem of belief.
Right.
Because Irene sees all of this. She experiences the bath, the fire, the lamp, this beautiful, ageless lady. And then she goes back downstairs and makes the classic mistake of telling the grown-ups.
And here we face what the text presents as the first crisis of truth.
She tells Ludi, her nurse.
Yes, and Ludi represents the materialist rebuttal perfectly. Her reaction is immediate, aggressive dismissal. She says, you dreamed it, you're telling stories, it's not there.
Ludi's logic is simple. If I didn't see it with my own 2 eyes, it didn't happen.
It's the empiricism of the lowest common denominator. If the experience isn't widely shared by the majority or specifically by the authority figure in the room, it is entirely invalid.
And look at the consequence this has on Irene. She immediately begins to doubt her own lived experience.
Which is what we call gaslighting today, essentially.
Exactly, but here it's framed as a profound spiritual crisis. She wonders, am I crazy? Did I just dream the whole thing?
So she goes back up to the attic, and the grandmother gives her this absolutely incredible apologetic for faith.
It's honestly one of the best lines in literature. Irene says, Ludi says I was dreaming. And the grandmother asks, essentially, does Ludi know everything?
Right, and then she lays down the central dictum of the whole book. Seeing is not believing, it is only seeing.
Let's really unpack that for the listener. Seeing is not believing, it is only seeing.
The grandmother is cleanly separating the sensory input, the physical active sight, from the internal moral act of the will, which is belief.
Right.
You can physically see something and entirely refuse to believe it. You can rationalize it away as a trick of the light, a hallucination, a weird dream.
Because belief is an active engagement with truth, not just a passive reception of visual data.
Exactly. She actually tells Irene that if Ludi did see her, if she walked right into the room, Ludi would simply rub her eyes and call it a dream anyway.
Because the incapacity to believe fundamentally limits the capacity to see.
Ludi's worldview is literally too small to fit the grandmother inside of it. So even if the raw data was presented clearly to her, her mind would actively reject it just to protect her existing paradigm.
That is a profound psychological insight for a Victorian fairy tale.
Yeah.
We constantly filter out reality that doesn't fit our preconceived paradigm.
We do. And this whole dynamic culminates in the second crisis, which involves Kurti.
Now, we need to properly introduce Kurti. He's the miner boy.
Kurti is the empiricist hero of the story. He's brave, he's deeply practical, he works hard in the mines, he fights goblins using mattocks and rhymes.
He's the salt of the earth.
He is. He represents reason, but specifically reason that hasn't yet been sanctified by faith.
So Irene, completely convinced now, brings Kurti up to the tower. She desperately wants to prove to him that her grandmother exists.
So excited.
She opens the door. She physically sees the blue walls, the rose fire, the beautiful lady sitting on the throne. And she points right at her and says, here she is, Kurti.
And Kurti stands there, looking at the exact same point in space. And what does he see?
A bare garret.
A bare garret, a wooden tub, a withered apple, a heap of old straw, just a sunbeam coming through a hole in the roof.
This scene absolutely kills me when I read it. It's so painful. Irene is pointing at a majestic queen, and Kurti just sees a heap of straw.
As we mentioned earlier, this is the text's most profound philosophical argument. Two people can stand in the exact same room, the same objective physical reality, and perceive two fundamentally different universes based entirely on their spiritual attunement.
It's not that Kurti is blind physically.
No, he has sharp eyes, he's the best miner in the entire kingdom, he can see in the dark better than anyone, but he lacks the specific faculty required to perceive the transcendent.
And his reaction is entirely defensive. He gets angry.
He feels mocked.
Right.
Because to a strict empiricist, if you claim to see something he cannot independently verify, you are either lying to his face or you are crazy. Yeah. He assumes Irene is making fun of him. He cannot perceive the transcendent, so he assumes it's a fiction designed to humiliate him.
Ideally, he would just say, hey, I don't see it, but I trust you because I know you're an honest person. But he can't even get there yet.
Not yet. He is trapped in what MacDonald calls the glare of the common day. He needs a totally different kind of awakening before he can see the fire.
Which brings us nicely to the bad guys. Part 3 of our dive. Hamartiology, the doctrine of sin and corruption. The goblins.
The anthropology of the goblin in this text is fascinating. MacDonald is incredibly clear on this point. They were not always goblins.
Right, the text states they were once human.
Yes, they lived above ground, in the sun.
But they moved underground. And why? To avoid taxes, to avoid laws, to avoid the king's authority.
So it starts as a civic rebellion, a rejection of order.
It's a libertarian secession that goes horribly, horribly wrong.
Exactly. And the physical deviation follows the moral deviation. Living away from the sun, dwelling in the dark, they became grotesque and misshapen over generations.
But, and this is a critical distinction the text makes, they did not become stupid.
No, the text explicitly says they became cleverer than humans.
Cunning.
Mischievous.
Yeah.
Ingenious. They have a complex government, they formulate long-term plans, they have their own technology in a sense.
Which suggests a theology where corruption does not equal stupidity. You can be brilliant and be absolutely evil.
You can be intellectually advanced while being completely spiritually devolved. It's not a loss of brain power, it's a hardening of the self.
Let's talk about their anatomy, because that reflects this hardening. The hard heads and the soft feet.
It's such a striking image. Their heads are quite literally as hard as stones. You can hit a goblin on the head with a heavy pickaxe and it might jar your arm, but it won't even give him a headache.
This heavily symbolizes obstinacy, a hard-headedness that refuses to bow, refuses to learn, refuses to be soft or permeable to the light.
Exactly, but the feet...
The feet are their massive vulnerability. They have no toes. Their feet are incredibly soft, tender, and sensitive.
What does that represent to you?
Well, the foot is our literal connection to the ground. It's our connection to reality, to the standing we have in the world. To have no toes, to have soft feet that literally cannot bear the touch of the world without pain, suggests a complete lack of a true foundation.
They are entirely disconnected from the earthiness of humility. They can't stand in the truth.
And what do? They wear stone shoes to hide it?
Right. They mask their fundamental vulnerability with a false hardness. It's a complete facade of strength covering up a foundational weakness.
And another interesting quirk. They absolutely hate poetry.
They cannot stand rhyming. That's how Kurti defeats them in the mines. He recites verses at them.
Like hush, gish, scurry, there you go in a hurry.
Right.
But why does bad poetry hurt them? Is it just a quirky magic system rule?
No, it's entirely metaphysical. Poetry implies order. It relies on meter, rhyme, harmony. These are essentially echoes of the divine order, the structure of the cosmos.
And the goblin soul is chaotic.
Yes, their very existence implies dissonance. So they recoil from the order of poetry the exact same way a vampire recoils from a cross. Verse imposes a structure on the air that their chaotic nature finds physically agonizing.
Now, these goblins have a plan. The Goblin Prince, Hairlip, which, by the way, is just a nasty descriptive name, he intends to marry Irene.
The marriage plot. This is the theological thread of the book. It's not just about kidnapping a princess for ransom.
It's about a synthesis.
Yes. Hairlip wants to marry a sun woman because the goblins, on some level, recognize they are devolving too far. They are losing too much of their original humanity.
They want to graft the sun's strength back into their dark kingdom, but they want to do it by force.
Exactly. They want the benefits of the light without submitting to the authority of the light.
They want to drag the high ground down to the underground. It's a profound violation of the cosmic order we talked about at the beginning.
It really is.
So Irene is in serious danger. The goblins are mining their way upwards to kidnap her. Which leads us to part 4 of our deep dive. Soteriology, the doctrine of salvation, or, as we like to call it, the doctrine of the thread.
This is the mechanism of grace in the story. Before all this happens, the grandmother gives Irene a gift. A ring with a fire opal.
It's described as a beautiful stone.
But the stone is just the anchor. Attached to the ring is a single thread. It's spun by the grandmother from that spiderweb material she's been working on. And the other end lies in her cabinet in the attic.
But Irene can't even see it.
No, it is totally invisible to the eye most of the time. She can only feel it with her finger. And the instruction the grandmother gives is incredibly specific. If you are in danger, put the ring under your pillow, put your finger on the thread, and follow it wherever it leads.
Wherever. That's the catch, isn't it?
It requires absolute, unquestioning obedience. And here is the paradox of the thread. When the goblins finally break into the house, the ultimate moment of crisis, Irene wakes up and feels for the thread.
And she naturally expects it to lead her up the stairs, back to the grandmother's room, to the high ground, to safety, to the fortress.
But it doesn't.
No, it leads her out the front door, out into the dark night. And then it points her straight into the side of the mountain, into the dark hole where the underground stream comes out.
It leads her directly into the enemy's territory.
Into the literal heart of darkness.
This is the classic descent into hell motif. The thread does not lead her away from danger in a physical, geographical sense. It leads her straight through the danger to the ultimate solution.
She has to crawl through tight tunnels over piles of loose stones. She is absolutely terrified. And at one point, she actually thinks the thread has failed her or that she's doing it wrong.
But she keeps going anyway. This is the working definition of faith in this treatise. Faith is not a warm feeling of safety.
Right.
It is the raw act of following the thread, even when it leads you into the pitch black, simply because you trust the spinner of the thread.
And where does it finally lead her? To a massive pile of stones where Kurti is trapped.
Kurti, the brave, strong miner, the one who fought the goblins, the one who relied purely on his own physical strength and his clever rhymes.
He is completely helpless.
He is trapped behind a wall of rock he cannot move. He is starving in the dark. As the text says, he has come to grief.
And here comes Irene, the seemingly weak little princess.
But she is the one holding the power of the thread. She is the bearer of grace in this moment.
Now, this scene is just incredible. She tells Kurti through the rocks, I'm clearing the stones to get you out. And Kurti is baffled. He's like, who are you? How did a little girl get down here?
And when she finally frees him, she says, follow me. The thread will lead us out.
And Kurti says, what thread?
He still can't see it. And worse, he can't even feel it. He physically puts his hand exactly where she says the thread is, and he feels absolutely nothing.
This is the rescue of the skeptic.
Kurti cannot save himself. His empiricism has hit a literal dead-end wall of unmoving rock. He must now trust the guidance of someone who possesses a faculty he completely lacks.
He literally has to hold Irene's hand.
He is saved by a faith he does not yet possess, mediated through a believer.
He is saved by proxy.
In a functional sense, yes. He is saved by obedience to a higher authority, which is Irene's confidence, even though he completely lacks the direct connection to the divine himself.
So they follow it, they get out, they escape the goblins, they escape the mountain. And this brings us to part 5, judgment and restoration. Because even after all that, Kurti still has a massive chip on his shoulder.
He really does. He's grateful to be out, obviously, but he still thinks Irene is basically crazy. He thinks she's playing an elaborate game.
Right. He absolutely refuses to believe in the grandmother. He thinks the thread was just a trick, or maybe just dumb luck.
So Irene, frustrated, drags him all the way up the tower again. Come see her. She's real.
And again, he looks and sees only the bare garret. He gets angry. He storms out and basically leaves Irene crying.
But then, a bit later, he gets hurt.
He is wounded in the leg by a crossbow bolt, and it's friendly fire from the king's own guards during a skirmish.
So he is laid up in his bed, heavily feverish, in a lot of pain.
And then the grandmother comes to him.
In his fever state, when his standard defenses are down, when his rigid, rational mind is essentially offline, she comes. She tends to him in the night. She rubs his wounded leg with that rose ointment.
And when he wakes up the next morning,
the wound is entirely gone. There's just a clean scar.
And this is the exact moment that changes him.
It's the shift from theoretical debate to experiential grace.
Right.
He couldn't argue his way into believing in her. He couldn't force himself to see his way into believing. He had to be physically healed by her. The direct experience of grace, the inexplicable restoration of his leg, is what finally breaks his skepticism.
Because he tells his mother, she healed me. It smells like roses.
He openly acknowledges his error. He repents of his doubt regarding Irene. And interestingly, his full restoration involves a return to normal duty.
Yeah, the king offers him a prestigious position in the royal bodyguard, but Kurti chooses to stay home and serve his parents first.
He becomes a true man of the kingdom by choosing humble duty.
Yes, but we also have to talk about the judgment side of this act. The flood.
The goblins' grand plan completely backfires.
They try to flood the human mind to kill all the miners.
But the miners realize what's happening and they divert the water. So the water violently rushes back down into the Goblin Palace.
It's total washout.
The water sweeps away the goblins entirely. It's an eschatological judgment. The deep corruption is washed away. The underground is forcibly cleansed.
And the king's house is saved.
Saved because they retreat to the rising ground. And there's that beautifully poetic image right at the end. The grandmother's lamp from the high window releases a white bird, a clear dove figure.
It circles the king and Irene.
It signals absolute safety. It signals that even amidst the total chaos and destruction of the flood, the divine oversight was always there, hovering over the waters.
It's a complete systematic theological cycle. You have creation, fall with the goblins, redemption through the thread, judgment with the flood, and ultimate restoration.
All perfectly wrapped in a story about a little girl and a goblin.
It is brilliant.
It is deeply necessary literature.
Okay, we've thoroughly unpacked the text. Now, as is our tradition on Talk Treatises, we have to push this into the realm of the hypothetical. It's time for thought experiments.
Let me just say, disclaimer, the following segment is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Do not attempt to implement goblin detection policies in your local municipality.
Exactly. But let's play with the ideas anyway. Experiment 1. The soft-foot sociological filter.
I really like this one. So the basic premise is, in the book, the goblins are humans who devolved. Their heads got hard, symbolizing obstinacy, and their feet got incredibly soft and toeless, representing a loss of connection to reality.
Right, so imagine a modern society where this wasn't just a metaphor. Imagine we could actually physically identify spiritual hardening.
Let's say we legally implement a barefoot test for public office. Before you can run for Senate or become a CEO, you have to take off your shoes in public.
If you have no toes, meaning you have factually lost your grip on the fundamental ground of truth, you are instantly disqualified.
And if your head is too hard, literally, if they tap it and it rings like a solid stone, you are out.
Would this result in a utopia?
Or, and this is the highly cynical goblin view of human nature, would the stone shoe industry just become the most powerful lobbying group in the world?
Oh, absolutely they would.
Yeah.
You'd have PR consultants selling prosthetic toes. You'd have underground clinics doing soft head implants to fake vulnerability for the cameras.
The profound implication here is that the goblins in the book did hide their deformity. They wore stone shoes specifically so they wouldn't look weak. The experiment suggests that making corruption physically visible doesn't actually stop corruption. It just incentivizes much better disguises. We might already be governed by the toeless just hiding in their granite loafers.
That is a deeply disturbing image to carry around. Okay, experiment 2, the subjective reality thread, or as we call it, the Kurti paradox.
This one challenges our entire view of modern science. Kurti stood in a room full of heavenly splendor and literally saw a dusty attic because he lacked the moral sense to perceive it.
So what if this is the actual state of our current physics?
We talk about dark matter and dark energy constantly. We say they make up 95% of the universe, but we can't see them. We can only infer their gravity.
What if dark matter is actually grandmother matter?
Exactly. What if it is physical matter that fundamentally requires a specific moral or ethical alignment in the observer to perceive?
So we're out here building bigger telescopes, better sensors.
But we're building them with Kurti technology. We're using strictly empiricist tools to try and capture a deeply spiritual reality.
So the radical proposal is this. We launch a scientific space mission where the primary sensors are not digital cameras, but saints.
We completely replace the Hubble telescope with the Princess Irene array. We send up the absolute most innocent, faithful, obedient people we can possibly find. And we ask them, look out the window, what do you see?
And they look out the portal and say, oh, the universe isn't mostly dark space. It's totally full of glowing rose fires and massive silver lamps and invisible threads connecting literally everything.
And the empiricist scientists back at Mission Control are looking at their data screens, seeing absolutely nothing but static, screaming into the mics, you're hallucinating.
The implication being, if reality is completely dependent on the observer's moral state, as it undeniably is in MacDonald's world, then objective science is actually impossible without subjective sanctification. You literally have to be good to see true.
Which is a genuinely terrifying thought for modern academia.
Indeed it is. Well, we have covered a massive amount of ground today, all the way from the attic, down to the mines, and up to the stars.
And back down again.
So what does this all mean for us? If we synthesize this entire treatise, what are we left holding?
I think we are ultimately left with the doctrine of obedience as the primary organ of knowledge. You don't understand things in order to obey them. That's the classic Kurti mistake. He desperately wanted to understand the grandmother's mechanics before he would agree to follow her.
But the truth is, you obey in order to understand.
Irene simply followed the thread into the dark. She obeyed. And purely because she obeyed, she was eventually led to the light, She only understood the full picture after she acted.
We have these very distinct roles laid out perfectly. The king is authority. The grandmother is providence. The princess is pure faith. And Kurti is human reason, which is powerful, but must eventually be sanctified by faith.
It's an incredibly complete, robust system.
I want to leave you, the listener, with one final provocative thought to chew on.
Go for it.
The grandmother explicitly tells Irene that the lamp is always shining. She says, I can make the walls vanish to the sight. The walls are only opaque because we firmly believe them to be opaque.
Yes.
So here is the question for you to take away. How many walls in your own life, obstacles, dead ends, unmoving stone barriers, are actually totally transparent? How many of them would just vanish if you had the courage to look through them instead of staring directly at them?
Perhaps the wall is only there because you just haven't turned on the lamp.
This has been Talk Treatises.
Keep following the thread.